The battle for the Helix Nebula lasted exactly 17 minutes. When it was over, the Devourer threat that had terrorized the galaxy for millennia was broken forever, and the universe learned why humans had earned the right to call themselves apex predators. Captain Yuki stood on the bridge of the Persistence, watching the final Devourer ships attempt to flee through the modified spacetime corridor that her engineers had prepared. The creatures that had once seemed unstoppable now moved with the desperate energy of prey that had finally encountered something higher on the food chain. Status report, she requested calmly. The quantum snare is holding, reported Engineer Jiwan, her voice filled with exhausted triumph. Every devourer that enters the corridor is being displaced to the containment dimension. They cannot adapt to physics that do not exist, Lieutenant. Minho looked up from his station, amazement clear in his voice. Captain, we did not just defeat them, we caught them all. Of them, every single devourer in the galaxy is now trapped in a universe where they cannot feed, cannot reproduce, and cannot escape. The communication channels buzzed with reports from across the human fleet. Not a single ship had been lost. The devourers, for all their power and adaptability, had been outmaneuvered by a species they had underestimated. How? The question came from the Galactic Council leader, its form flickering with confusion and awe. How did you accomplish something that our combined civilizations could not? Yuki turned to face the communication screen where representatives from dozens of species watched in stunned silence. You asked the wrong question from the beginning, she said simply. You asked how to fight them. We asked how to understand them. She gestured to the tactical display where the trap execution was being replayed in slow motion. Every species that faced the devourers tried to match their strength, but humans learned long ago that the most dangerous predator is not the strongest, it is the one that thinks differently from its prey. Captain Kangman's voice joined the conversation from the destroyer. Tenacity. While you were building bigger weapons, we were studying their behavior. Every attack they made, every adaptation they showed, every mistake they made, we recorded it all and then added. Captain Suyang from the Relentless, we did something that no prey species had ever done before. We turned their own hunting instincts against them. The display showed the elegant simplicity of the trap. The devourers, believing they were pursuing scattered prey, had been led into a carefully prepared killing ground. Their own pack mentality, their coordination, their overwhelming numbers, all of it had been turned into a weakness. The containment dimension was the key, Yuki explained. We created a universe where the laws of physics favor persistence over power, adaptation over strength. The devourers are still alive, but they are trapped in a reality where they can never be apex predators again. The crystalline collective representative harmonized in wonder. You did not destroy them, you domesticated them. Yuki's smile was sharp but not unkind. We removed them from the food chain on Earth. We learned that the most effective way to deal with a dangerous predator is not to kill it, it is to make it irrelevant. The chamber fell silent as the implications sank in the devourers. The unstoppable force that had terrorized the galaxy had been defeated not by superior firepower but by superior thinking. There is one more thing, Yuki said, her voice carrying across the communication channels. To every ship in the fleet, every world in the galaxy, this was never about humans proving we were the apex predator. This was about the galaxy learning to hunt as a family. The display showed the final phase of the battle where ships from multiple species had joined the human fleet not as subordinates but as equals. The Gorian warchief battleship had provided the heavy firepower that held the devourers' attention. The Zephyrian scouts had mapped the quantum corridors. The crystalline collective had provided the computational power needed to modify reality itself. Every species contributed something unique. Yuki continued. The devourers were apex predators in a galaxy of individuals, but they could not adapt to face a galaxy that had learned to hunt as one pack. As the human fleet began to disperse, returning to their scattered positions throughout the galaxy, the communication channels filled with voices from across known space, not just thanks but invitations, requests for cooperation. Offers of alliance. Captain, said Communications Officer Haijin, we are receiving messages from over 300 worlds. They want to know how to join the pack. Yuki nodded, satisfied. Send them the coordinates for the first interspecies tactical conference. It is time to teach the galaxy what humans learned when we first looked up at the stars and decided we did not want to be prey anymore. She turned back to the view screen where the stars shone with new promise. Somewhere out there, the Devourers still existed, trapped in their prison dimension, no longer a threat but not forgotten. They would serve as a reminder that even apex predators could be outmaneuvered and ultimately overcome. The galaxy had learned its lesson. There was always something higher on the food chain, and that something was not any single species. It was the willingness to work together, to think differently, and to never give up. Humanity had asked to be judged as apex predators instead. They had taught the galaxy how to become apex predators together. The hunt was over. The real adventure was just beginning. The Helix Nebula had never seen so much activity. What had once been a quiet region of space now buzzed with the movement of ships. As Captain Yuki's plan reached its critical phase, the human fleet had positioned themselves at the intersections of three major trade routes, effectively cutting off the Devourers from their primary feeding grounds. Captain reported Lieutenant Minho from the Persistence Weapon Station. We are detecting massive movement from the hive. It looks like they are mobilizing everything they have. Yuki studied the tactical display, watching as thousands of Devourer signatures began streaming out of their home structure. How many? At least 10,000 individual contacts. Minho replied, his voice tight with tension. They are not just sending a hunting party, they are sending everything. Yuki said, her calm tone contrasting sharply with the magnitude of the approaching threat. That means they are angry predators. Make mistakes, Captain. Kangman's voice crackled through the communication system from his position near the Centauri gate. Yuki, they are moving faster than we anticipated. Whatever you did to them before, they remember it. They are coming for us specifically. The display showed the Devourer swarm changing course, ignoring the alien defensive fleets and heading directly for the human ships. The creatures moved with purpose, their forms shifting and adapting as they traveled through space. They are not just angry, observed Captain Suang from the Relentless. They are coordinated. This is not random aggression, it is a planned assault. Yuki nodded, satisfied. Phase 1 complete. They have committed everything to hunting us. Now, they cannot change their minds. Engineer Jiwan looked up from her console, concern evident in her voice. Captain, with respect, 10,000 Devourers against 6 human ships. Even with our modifications, the odds are exactly what I want them to be. Yuki interrupted gently. Jiwan, how many humans lived on Earth when we first started hunting mammoth? The engineer blinked, confused by the apparent change of subject. Maybe a few 100,000. And how many mammoth were there? Millions, I suppose. Yet who survived? Yuki's smile was sharp as winter wind. The mammoth were bigger, stronger, better adapted to their environment, but they could not do one thing that humans could do. She gestured to the tactical display where the human ships were beginning to execute a complex series of maneuvers. They could not work together across continents. They could not communicate complex plans. They could not turn their entire species into a single hunting pack. The communication channels exploded with activity as human ships throughout the galaxy began to report in not just the 6 ships in the nebula, but dozens of vessels that had been hidden throughout known space. This is Captain Wunho from the battleship Indomitable, jumping in from the outer rim. Captain Minji here, bringing the carrier Resilient from the Andromeda Gate destroyer pack. Alpha through Echo reporting for duty. The tactical display transformed as ship after ship dropped out of hyperspace around the nebula. The Devourers suddenly found themselves facing not 6 isolated human vessels, but a coordinated fleet of over 50 ships. How breathed the Gorian warchief, voiced through the communication system. How did you hide so many ships? We did not hide them, Yuki explained as the human fleet began to execute a maneuver that would have been impossible for any other species. We scattered them while you were trying to build bigger and stronger fleets. We were building a network. Every human ship in the galaxy is part of the same pack. The Devourers committed to their assault on what they thought were 6 isolated ships found themselves surrounded by a coordinated force that moved with perfect synchronization. But more importantly, they found themselves facing a trap that had been generations in the making. Now, Yuki said quietly, they are going to learn what it means to hunt, something that has been preparing for this moment since the day humans first looked up at the stars and wondered what was out there. The human fleet moved as one, not to destroy the Devourers, but to herd them toward a specific point. In space, a point where the very fabric of reality had been quietly modified by human engineers working in secret for months. Welcome to the kill zone, Yuki whispered, and the final phase of humanity's greatest hunt began. News of the persistence encounter with the Devourers spread through the galaxy faster than light itself. Captain Yuki found herself in the uncomfortable position of being both celebrated and doubted by the various alien species. The Galactic Council had called another emergency session, and the crystal chamber buzzed with excitement and skepticism. One destroyed Devourer means nothing, growled the Gorian war chief, his massive form dominating his section of the chamber. We have destroyed individual Devourers before. The problem is, they always return in greater numbers. The crystalline collective representative harmonized in agreement. The data suggests they learn from each encounter. Your victory may have simply taught them to be more cautious. Around humans, Yuki stood calmly in the center of the chamber, her small human form dwarfed by the alien giants around her. You are absolutely right, she said, surprising everyone. They are learning. That is exactly what I wanted. The council leader form pulsed with confusion. You wanted them to learn, but surely that makes them more dangerous to you. Yes, Yuki replied, but I am not you. I am human. And humans have been dealing with learning, adapting enemies for our entire evolutionary history. She gestured to the holographic display showing the tactical data from the encounter. Look at how they retreated. They did not just flee, they maintained formation. They covered each other. Withdrawal. They communicated. They are not just individual predators, they are a pack. The chamber fell silent. Ambassador Tiemann leaned forward, understanding beginning to dawn on his face. You're saying they hunt like wolves? I am saying they think they hunt like wolves, Yuki corrected, but wolves have never faced humans, who learned to hunt in packs millions of years before wolves even existed. She walked to the tactical display, her movements drawing every eye in the chamber. Every species here has tried to face them as individuals or as armies, but humans learned something unique on Earth. We learned to hunt as a family. The display changed, showing the positions of several human ships that had been moving into position throughout the galaxy. Meet the rest of my pack, Yuki said with a smile that made several aliens step back. Captain Kangman's voice crackled through the communication system from the destroyer Tenacity. We have been tracking the Devourers that escaped from your encounter. They have linked up with a larger group, just as you predicted. Another voice joined in, Captain Suyang from the cruiser Relentless. We have identified their feeding pattern. They are not random destroyers, they are farmers. The chamber erupted in confused murmurs. The Gorian war chief confusion was obvious. Farmers, what do you mean? Yuki's expression grew grim. They are not just consuming civilizations for food, they are cultivating them. The Devourers attack, consume most of the energy, then leave just enough survivors to rebuild. When the civilization recovers, they come back to feed again. The horrifying implications hit the chamber like a wave. The Zephyrian representative wings fluttered in distress. You mean they have been keeping us as livestock? Not all of you, Yuki said. Some civilizations they destroy completely, but others they are part of a cycle. They have been doing this for so long that they have forgotten what it is like to face something that will not just regrow after being harvested. Captain Yemen voice came through from the stealth ship. Whisper. We have located their central hive. It is massive, bigger than anything we have ever seen. The display showed a structure that defied comprehension. A living habitat built from the remains of countless worlds stretching across light years of space. It pulsed with absorbed energy, and moving within it were thousands of Devourers. That is where they take the energy they steal. Yuki explained. That is where they breed, where they plan, where they decide which civilizations to harvest next. The council leader form dimmed with despair. It is impossible. Even with our combined fleets, we could not assault something that size. You could not, Yuki agreed. But we are not going to assault it. We are going to do something humans have been doing since we first learned to hunt mammoth with pointed sticks. She turned to face the chamber, her eyes blazing with determination. We are going to make them come to us, and when they do, they are going to discover that Earth apex predator has one advantage they cannot match. We do not just hunt in packs, we hunt as a family, and nothing in the universe is more dangerous than a human family protecting what they love. The chamber watched in stunned silence as the human ships began to move into position, not to attack the hive, but to threaten something the Devourers had never had to protect before. Their food supply. The Real hunt was about to begin, and the galaxy was about to learn why humans had never lost a war when they fought as one. The Persistence drifted through the debris field that had once been the Altarian home system, its hull scarred and listing to port. Through the ship-modified sensors, Captain Yuki watched the twisted wreckage of what had been a thriving civilization. Just days ago, entire planets had been reduced to floating rocks, their cores drained of energy. Captain whispered Communications Officer Hyjin. I am picking up movement in the asteroid field. The signatures are wrong. They do not match any known life. Forms. Yuki nodded, her expression calm despite the tension radiating from her crew. That is them. Remember, we are wounded. Pray, erratic movement, partial life support, and keep those false distress signals. Broadcasting pilot Sunho hands trembled slightly. As he deliberately flew the ship in an unsteady pattern, I have never pretended to be helpless before. Every instinct is screaming at me to run or fight. That is exactly what they expect, Yuki said softly. Every species they have encountered has done. One of those two things. We are going to do something different. Shadows in the asteroid field began to move, and the crew got their first real look at the Devourers. They were massive, shapeless beings of living darkness, their forms constantly shifting between liquid and solid. Tentacles of pure shadow reached out from their bodies, and where they touched the wreckage, matter simply ceased to exist. My God-breathed engineer Jiwan, they are not just eating the material, they are unmaking it. 3 Devourers emerged from the debris, each one larger than the Persistence. Their forms pulsed with absorbed energy, and as they approached, the ship instruments began to fluctuate wildly. They are scanning us, reported Lieutenant Minho from Weapons. Should I prepare the countermeasures? No, Yuki said firmly. Let them scan. Let them think they know what we are. The largest Devourer approached the ship, its form casting impossible shadows across the hull. Tentacles of darkness reached out, probing the ship. Exterior, the crew held their breath as the creature attention focused on what appeared to be critical damage to the engines. Captain, the ship AI reported to creatures attempting to interface with our systems. It appears to be curious about our technology. Yuki's smile was sharp as a blade. Of course it is. It is trying to understand what we are before it feeds. That is, what apex predators do they study their prey? The Devourer tentacles found the deliberately weakened sections of the hull that Jiwan had modified. As it began to probe deeper, preparing to drain the ship energy, Yuki gave a subtle hand signal. Now, she whispered. The damaged sections of the hull suddenly blazed with hidden energy conduits instead of the ship power being drained. The energy flowed outward, racing along the Devourer tentacles and into its core. The creature recoiled, its form flickering as it tried to process what was happening. Reverse polarity, Yuki commanded. Feed it everything we have. Got the ship modified. Systems pumped raw energy into the Devourer, but not the kind it was designed to consume. Instead of the organized energy patterns it usually fed on, the Persistence was flooding it with chaotic contradictory signals, the electronic equivalent of poison. The creature writhed its form, beginning to destabilize. The other two Devourers moved to assist, but Yuki was ready for them. Sunho evasive pattern Delta. Jiwan released the decoys. Minho target their connection points. The ship suddenly came alive, its damaged systems revealing themselves to be perfectly functional. Hidden weapon ports opened and concentrated bursts of energy struck the points where the Devourer's tentacles connected to their main bodies. They are not used to prey that fights back intelligently, Yuki observed as the creatures struggled to adapt to the sudden change in circumstances. They are used to overwhelming force meeting overwhelming force. The first Devourer form began to collapse, its ability to maintain cohesion compromised by the energy poisoning. As it dissolved, the other two seemed to realize they were dealing with something unprecedented. Captain Hyjin called out, I am detecting communication patterns between the remaining Devourers. They are afraid. Yuki expression grew predatory. Good fear makes prey make mistakes. The two remaining Devourers began to retreat, but the Persistence was ready. Hidden throughout the debris field were small devices that Jiwan had deployed while they approached, not weapons, but sensors and energy relays. They think they are escaping, Yuki said, but they are just walking deeper into the trap. The devices activated, creating a web of energy that did not harm the Devourers but tracked their movement and analyzed their composition. Every time they shifted form, every adaptation they made was recorded and transmitted back to the ship. We are not trying to kill them all today, Yuki explained to her crew, "We are learning how they think, how they adapt, how they react to the unexpected. The real hunt starts now." As the Persistence watched the two devourers flee into the depths of space, carrying with them the first taste of fear they had ever experienced. Yuki began planning the next phase of her hunt. The Galaxy apex predators were about to learn that Earth apex predator had one advantage: they could not match the ability to turn being underestimated into a weapon. Captain Yuki stood in the command center of the newly given ship called the Persistence, watching her hand-picked crew work with focused energy. The ship itself was amazing, galactic engineering, sleek and powerful, but she had asked for several changes. That had confused the alien engineers. Captain called out, "Lieutenant Minho from the weapons station, the Gorians are asking again why you wanted the targeting systems made weaker. They say their quantum lock-on system never misses." Yuki moved to his station, her steps silent on the metal floor. "Because Minho, perfect targeting systems make lazy hunters. I want systems that make us work, that make us think." She pointed to the changed controls. "The Devourers have probably learned to avoid quantum targeting by now. We need to be unpredictable." Engineer Jiwon looked up from her computer, wiping grease from her hands. "The armor changes are almost done. I still think it is crazy to add weak points to our hull," but she shrugged, trusting her captain judgment. "The weak points are not for them," Yuki explained patiently. "They are for us. When we need to make quick repairs or changes during combat, we will need access points. The Devourers think in terms of perfect defense. We think in terms of controlled vulnerability." The ship AI programmed by the Crystalline Collective spoke in its musical voice. "Captain, I do not understand the logic. You are deliberately making the ship weaker." Yuki smiled, the expression that had become familiar to her crew. "No, I am making it adaptable. The Devourers are like a flood, overwhelming everything in their path. But water, no matter how powerful, always finds a way around obstacles. We are going to be the rock that does not just stand in the flood. We are going to redirect it." Pilot Sunho called from the helm. "Captain, we are receiving tactical data from the last 3 encounters with the Devourers. The footage is disturbing. The main screen filled with images of the battles, massive writhing creatures of living darkness tore through space fleets like they were made of paper. Their forms seemed to shift and change, adapting to each weapon fired at them. Ships exploded in brilliant flashes, their crew's final moments captured in the cold recording. "Look at the pattern," Yuki said, pointing to specific moments in the footage. "Watch how they attack the largest ships first, then work their way down. They are not just mindless destroyers. They are smart, but they follow a hierarchy. They always go for what appears to be the biggest threat." Communications Officer Hyjin frowned as she studied the data. "But that makes sense tactically. Take out the strongest enemy first. It makes sense if you think like a predator from most worlds," Yuki corrected. "But humans learned to hunt in packs. We learned to use misdirection to make the prey think the threat is coming from one direction while we attack from another." She walked to the center of the command deck, her crew gathering around her. "Every species they have faced has tried to meet them with brute force, bigger ships, stronger weapons, thicker armor. But what if we do not try to be the biggest threat? What if we make them think we are not a threat at all?" The crew exchanged glances. Minho spoke first. "You want us to appear weak?" "I want us to appear like prey," Yuki said, her eyes gleaming. "Humans became apex predators partly because we learned to think like prey. We learned to run, to hide, to make ourselves look harmless, but we never forgot how to bite back." Jawan nodded slowly, understanding dawning on her face. "The modifications to the ship, we are not just making it adaptable, we are making it look damaged, vulnerable." "Exactly. We are going to limp into their territory looking like wounded prey. They will come to feed expecting an easy meal." Yuki's smile grew wider. "Instead, they will find out why every successful ambush predator on Earth learned to look harmless first." The ship AI processed this information. "This strategy contains significant risk. If the deception fails, then we adapt." Yuki interrupted. "That is what humans do. We fail, we learn, we try again. Every creature that went extinct on Earth was perfectly adapted to its environment. We survived because we could adapt to any environment." As the Persistence finished its modifications and prepared to leave, Yuki stood alone in her quarters looking out at the stars. Soon she would be face to face with the Devourers, creatures that had made the galaxy's greatest warriors flee in terror. But they had never faced a human hunter before. They had never faced a species that had climbed to the top of the food chain, not through strength but through cunning, persistence, and the willingness to become the monster that even monsters feared. The hunt was about to begin. The huge crystal room filled with scared voices as beings from 47 different worlds came together for an emergency meeting. Captain Yuki sat in the small corner where humans were placed, her dark eyes looking around the room while her fingers made soft tapping sounds on the smooth table. The other alien races were much bigger than humans, their strange bodies making long shadows on the floor. The council leader was a creature made of bright, flowing light, and it spoke with a shaking voice that everyone could hear. The Devourers have eaten 3 whole star systems in just 1 month. Our biggest fleets cannot stop them. They cut through our strongest shields like they are made of paper, and they eat the energy from entire suns. The huge chamber became quiet except for the soft clicking sounds from the machines that helped everyone understand each other. Yuki watched as the mighty Gorians, who were famous for having armor that never broke, moved around nervously in their seats. The Zephyrians, who were the best at fighting in space, had their wing-like arms folded tight against their bodies, showing they had given up. Even the ancient crystalline collective, who had lived for millions of years, seemed to have lost their usual calm wisdom. We need a predator, the council leader continued, and its voice became more desperate. Something that can hunt the Devourers before they destroy everything we have built over thousands of years. We have looked at every world, every species, but nothing in all our records shows a race that can hunt like this. The Gorian War Chief stood up, and his massive body cast a shadow across the human section. What about the humans, he asked. They are small, but I have heard strange stories about their world. His voice carried curiosity mixed with doubt, as if he was trying the last possible option. All eyes in the giant room turned to look at the human delegation. Ambassador Teeman, who was the leader of Earth. People looked uncomfortable when everyone stared at him. He was a person who talked and made peace, not a warrior, and having 47 different alien races looking at him made his hands shake. A little we would need to ask our military leaders. Teeman began, and his voice was not sure. Earth has many different ways of fighting, but I'm not sure if we can help with something this big. May I speak? Yuki's voice cut through the ambassador's stammering words. She stood up slowly, and her movement was smooth and controlled, even though she was small compared to the alien giants around her. Something about the way she stood made the entire chamber pay attention to her. Teeman looked surprised, but nodded his head. This is Captain Yuki, one of our special forces officers, he said to the aliens. The council leader form became brighter with hope. You believe your species can help us? It asked. Yuki smiled, and that simple expression somehow made several aliens take a step back. You asked for Earth apex predator. She raised her hand, and the movement was so simple but confident that everyone in the chamber held their breath. I am here. The silence that followed was so complete you could hear the smallest sound. The Gorian war chief laughed, and it sounded like big stones grinding together. You, a small human female, you say you are the apex predator of your world. Yuki smile became wider, and her eyes had something in them that made the translation. Machines stutter and work harder. On Earth we have creatures with teeth longer than your arm, poison that can kill in seconds, and claws that can tear through steel, but they all fear one thing. She stopped talking to let her words sink into everyone's minds. They fear as the chamber filled with confused voices talking at the same time. The crystalline collective representative spoke in musical tones. Your species has no natural weapons. You have no claws, no poison, no armored skin. How can you say you are predators? Because Yuki said, and her voice carried across the chamber with quiet strength, we do not need them. We became the apex predator of our world, not because we were the strongest or fastest. We became apex predators because we never give up. We adapt, we learn, we hunt in ways that would give you nightmares. Nightmares? The council leader form pulsed with growing excitement. You will help us hunt the Devourers? Yuki nodded, once sharp and sure. Give me a ship, a crew, and let me see your fighting information. I will show you how Earth apex predator deals with something that thinks it is at the top of the food chain. The war chief, massive arms crossed over his chest. This is foolish. One small human cannot defeat creatures that have destroyed entire civilizations. What makes you think you can succeed? Where Our greatest warriors have failed. Yuki turned to face him directly, and her small size made her seem even more dangerous instead of less. Let me tell you about Earth, she said. Every creature on our planet that became too specialized for one environment died when that environment changed, but humans, we learned to live anywhere, we learned to eat anything. We learned to use tools when our bodies were not strong enough. We learned to work together when we were too weak alone. She walked closer to the center of the room, and aliens, much bigger than her, moved aside. The biggest mistake every species makes is thinking that being apex predator means being the biggest or strongest on Earth. The biggest creatures died first when things changed. We survived because we could change faster than our environment could kill us. But what does this have to do with the Devourers? Asked a representative from the water world of Aquanisov. Everything, Yuki replied. The Devourers think like every apex predator. In the galaxy, they use overwhelming force. They rely on being stronger and more powerful than anything they face. But they have never faced something that became apex predator by being smarter, not stronger. The room was completely silent now as aliens tried to understand what this small human was telling them. You see, Yuki continued, the Devourers are perfect at what they do. They are the ultimate consuming machine, but perfect means they cannot change, and anything that cannot change can be defeated by something that can change faster. She looked around the room, meeting the eyes of representatives from dozens of worlds. Give me what I asked for, and I will prove that Earth apex predator is not just one human. It is the idea that no matter how big or strong or perfect your enemy is, there is always a way to win if you are willing to think differently. The council leader voice trembled with something between hope and fear. Very well, Captain Yuki, you will have your ship, your crew, and all our tactical data, but if you fail, the galaxy may not survive long enough for another attempt. Yuki's smile never changed, but her eyes were already thinking, planning, hunting. That is exactly the kind of pressure that makes humans do their best work, she said, when everything is at stake, when there is no safety net, when the only choice is to succeed or watch everything die. That is when you see what Earth apex predator can really do. As the session ended and aliens filed out, many casting nervous glances at the small human who had just volunteered to hunt the unstoppable force that had terrorized the galaxy. Yuki remained in her seat. Her smile never wavered, but her mind was already working on plans that would use humanity's greatest weapon against an enemy that had never faced anything like it. The galaxy was about to learn why humans had climbed to the top of Earth food chain and why they had stayed there even when bigger, stronger creatures had tried to take their place.